So I know that it is now February and I am a little late getting this video out, but I did really want to talk about the books that I read in January, regardless if I'm a little late. So I started out the month with my reread of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. Fourth Wing is the first book in the Empyrean series, and Iron Flame is the second book. This is a romantasy series by Rebecca Yarros, and I actually had already read these books before. I was just rereading in preparation for Onyx Storm, and I actually didn't read them. I listened to the audiobooks the second time around. And if you are someone who likes to listen to audiobooks, I would highly recommend using graphic audio because not only do they have a full cast of characters, but they also have sound effects, so it's like listening to a whole movie. And it was just a really great experience for me. I loved them. I did notice that the graphic audio versions are broken up in two parts per book, and they are a little more expensive than other audiobooks, but I had credits from Audible that I used to listen to them, so I didn't have to pay anything out of pocket, and it was just a great experience overall. So back when I did actually read the books, I gave Fourth Wing 5 stars and Iron Flame 4 stars. So after that, I continued on with the Lords series by Chantal Tessier, and I read the fifth book in the series, which is Carnage. This story is about Saint and Ashton, and this is a dark revenge romance. So if you're going to read this, make sure you check your trigger warnings. The Lord series is kind of a lot in general. So if you do want to read that, check your trigger warnings because it can get a little crazy. So I gave this one 4 stars just like all the other books in this series. Then I finished up my last Christmas read of 2024, which is Unleashed Holiday by Victoria Shade. This is a story about Andrew and Chelsea, who know each other from college, and he starts renting a business space next to her business. So it's definitely part of the forced proximity trope, and she ends up training his dog because his dog doesn't really have any manners. And they kind of just end up near each other a lot, and then something blossoms into a romance. So definitely really cute. I gave this one 3 stars. I love dogs. This was a very cute read. Just nothing extraordinary, in my opinion. So after that, we got to read Onyx Storm. And I was so excited for this, guys. I was tracking where this was every single day. And just look at these sprayed edges. I've never had a book with sprayed edges, and I think those are so pretty. So I'm sure that not everybody has read this book yet, so I don't want to give away any spoilers. So I'm not going to say too much about this book, but I was fully expecting this book to destroy me. Like, I thought I was going to be a sobbing mess on the floor at the end of this book, and that just didn't quite happen for me. I don't know if I read it too fast and wasn't really like picking up on everything, because I've seen a lot of other people review this and they had like some kind of crazy reactions, and I just personally didn't feel that. Like, yes, there were some really sad parts. I did shed a tear or two during this book, but like I said, I don't know if I read it too fast or like wasn't paying enough attention or something, but it didn't hit me as hard as I have seen it hit other people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Everybody has their own experiences in books. But I was kind of just expecting more. The ending, though. Rebecca, what do you mean? Rebecca. That's all I can say because I don't want to give anything away. Also, I'm starting to realize that I really love Riddick. He is one of my favorite characters. He is so freaking funny that I'm giggling and kicking my feet to anything that comes out of this man's mouth. So they have announced that they are starting to film a TV show for Fourth Wing. And I am a little nervous because if the characters don't match the image that I have in my head, I think I'm going to hate it. And it could either go really, really wrong or really, really right. So I guess we will just see what happens. But this is the third book in the Empyrean series, and I gave this one 4 stars. So I think that I will reread Onyx Storm before the next book comes out, but I heard that she announced that she is taking an even longer break before she releases the fourth book. So by the time it's released, I'm going to forget everything that happened in this book anyway. So I think that I'll take my time when I reread this and see if I have a different rating based on what I notice or what I pick out. So stay tuned for that. It'll probably be a couple years down the road, but I will reread this at some point, and hopefully we'll have a different opinion on the book. So after that, I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Elsie Silver is quickly becoming one of my favorite authors. I absolutely ate this book up, okay? I read this within like a few days, and that's only because I had to go to work in between reading. Otherwise, I would have sat in that chair until this book was done. That's how much I love this. This is book 1 in the Rose Hill series, and it follows Ford and Rosie. And Rosie is Ford's best friend's little sister. And he has been in love with her since basically forever. Like, he's always been in love with her. She just didn't realize it, I guess. And they've kind of always really had a thing for each other, if I'm being honest. But they never let themselves explore that because Ford is her brother's best friend. So when they were teenagers, Ford was taking her home from a party, and she threw her diary out the window after writing in it and went on with her life. So she ends up coming back to the small town of Rose Hill later on in life and finds out that Ford went back and got her diary from when she threw it out the window, and also found the key, but he didn't open it, he didn't read it, and he wore that key around his neck for 10 years. Are you joking? Could you imagine? Do you know how? I wouldn't even know what to say if I found out that someone did that. And so the reason that she came back to the small town of Rose Hill is because she got fired from her fancy job in the city. And it turns out that her supervisor had touched her inappropriately, and she had threatened to go to HR about it, so he got her fired. And Ford happens to be a millionaire because he owns a record label company. He goes and buys every single building that company is trying to run their business out of, so he can make that man's life miserable forever touching her. I would simply die. If someone did that, I would die. I would pass away. I would just be dead. Like, how can you write a man that great? That's what I would like to know. And I fully intend on reading every single book that she has ever put out. I do have the next one that I am super excited to start reading, but I am reading something else at the moment, so I want to finish that before I start the next one. But I am super excited to start this, and I also have pre-ordered the third book in this series that should be here sometime in March. So whenever I get that, I'm immediately starting on that. So this is obviously a romance book, and it's actually really cute. Has a little bit of spice. Actually, more than a little bit. It has some pretty good spice in it. I gave this one 4 stars, but it probably actually should be 5 stars. I've noticed that the only genre that I give 5 stars are fantasy books, and I think that's just because that's what I love to read. I love fantasy books. Romances, dark romance, mystery, thrillers, they're all okay, but fantasy is my favorite. And so because I love them so much, it's hard to rate other books as 5 stars. But this one probably should have been 5 stars, but I gave it 4. So those are the 6 books that I read this month. My goal every month is to read at least 3 books, and we doubled that this month. And my goal for the entire year is to read 50. And if I do read 50, my next goal is 100. So we'll see how that goes.